Alright, problem number 8. This is going to be really annoying to do on the iPad, but we'll see what we can do. Write a paragraph proof for the following. We are given that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, so I'm going to mark them as congruent just for my own purposes. We also know that WX, line segment WX, is congruent to line segment ZY, so I'm going to go bloop and ploop as well. So we want to show that angle 3 is congruent to angle 4 right there. We don't have it, so I'm not going to mark it, but that's what we want, that right there. Notice, if you look at that triangle in the middle, that those would be base angles of that triangle. So if we can somehow show that these two line segments are congruent, then by the isosceles triangle theorem, we will have angle 3 congruent to angle 4. So let's see if we can get there somehow. But this is what I notice right now. I notice if you look at this as one giant triangle, we have the base angles of an isosceles triangle congruent, which tells me that, boom, boom, those line segments right there, PW and PZ, have to be congruent. So I'm going to start writing my proof. I'm going to start with my givens. So I'm going to say, let angle 1 be congruent to angle 2, and let line segment WX be congruent to line segment ZY. Then the next sentence I'm going to say is, by the isosceles triangle theorem, we know that PW is congruent to PZ. Now that I've proven that a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and mark that on my diagram because I can now use it later on in my proof. So now recognize when we look at this triangle, sorry, I need to mark those with 2 ticks. Now recognize when we look at these two triangles, we have that side, that angle, and that side. We have that side, and that angle, and that side. So by side, angle, side, we know we have two congruent triangles. So I am now going to say, by the side angle side triangle congruence shortcut, we know that triangle XWP is congruent to triangle YZP. I don't remember which way I said the triangles, but as long as you put corresponding pieces in the correct spot, XWP, YZP, that's fine. WXP, ZYP, that's fine. PXW, PYZ, that's fine. PWX, PZY, that's fine. All those things are fine. Just make sure you put it in the right order. So now, let's remind ourselves what we were trying to show. We want to show that angle 3 is congruent to angle 4, and we said in order to do that, we're going to need to show that this is an isosceles triangle. So we want to show that those segments are congruent, and we can now finally say that those segments are congruent because since we know that this triangle is congruent to this triangle, by CPCTC, we know that this side is congruent to that side. So now I'm going to put that down in my sentence. So because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, side PX must be congruent to side PY. And now we can say that triangle XPY or triangle YXP, XPY or YPX is isosceles, boop-a-doop-boop, by the definition. So now I'm actually just going to say, by definition, triangle XPY is isosceles. By definition, triangle XPY is isosceles. And by the isosceles triangle theorem, the biconditional theorem that we've proven, angle 3 must be congruent to angle 4 because base angles are congruent. So I finished my proof, I fit in this tiny little space, and I got to draw a box at the end, and my life is happy.